Hey, everybody, this is Sid Graef, and welcome to the Transformations podcast, the huge transformations. My guest today is Pat Clark, as you can see, and Pat's been part of the home service industry for a very long time, been a leader in the industry as well. Right now, you've got Bright Brothers Power Washing, and you have your own location. It's a franchise as well. You started with Precision Pro Wash. You developed Sales Boost, and now you're franchising. So it's a pretty big journey, and I want to dig into it and learn about how you got started in business, and literally, like, how did you start in home service business, and why? Why would you do such a silly
Yeah. So I will correct you just a little bit there, Sid. So I don't actually own my own location, which is amazing. And there's a whole reason behind that, which we'll get into. But no, home services, man, is my passion. It really is. Like, I got in out of necessity. I was 20 years old. I remember going to my first event. It was back in 2008, and I literally, me and my wife slept in our van to go to a 2-day event because I couldn't afford the hotel. But I was like, hell or high water, man, we're gonna make this business work, right?
right
And
on?
so, yeah, I slept at the hotel, learned about non-pressure roof cleaning. Crazy, right?
Yeah,
And just dove in. I went on the internet. Back then, we didn't have YouTube, we didn't have like Facebook like we do today, right? It was forums.
yeah,
So 20 plus years ago, right? Like, I'm on the grime scene, and like, I'll mention some names, and these guys are like, oh, the OG, right?
yeah,
But
right.
like, OG boards, and I was like researching roof cleaning, exterior cleaning, new construction, and so I went in full time, and it was hard. Don't get me wrong, like the first like 3 to 4 years was very difficult for us. Rice and beans in the winter time, you know what I mean? Like, learning marketing, learning all that. And then I got a business coach, AC Lockyer, my
Mhm.
man, the myth, the legend, right? And so he came to my location. I remember it was our last like $4,000. And he literally picked him up from the hotel, and I had a 5-gallon bucket my wife was sitting on. He gets in the passenger seat. We're in my work van, right? That's all I had. 1995 Astro van, right? Astro vans. But yeah, no, picked him up, and I was like, hey man, this is my last $4,000. Where do we go from here? And AC is a blessing. And so anyway, he taught me marketing, he taught me systems, right? He taught me how to get out there. And sure enough, right? I just went for it. And the next time he came back out, he was like, dude, it's like Jesus is strapped to your back. Like, I'm executing, right? Like, he's done it. I'm
Yeah,
gonna execute, and I'm gonna put in the work. Like, I'm a worker, man. I'm gonna put it in. And so, home services, I found my passion. I started growing the businesses, and then people were like, hey, can you speak at my event? Can you teach how you're growing? And so I was never outgoing, right? I was scared to talk to people. I was not, I barely made it through high school. I was in special ed. Like, I could tell you a crazy background, right? Like, my dad was never in the picture, but I knew I wanted to talk to my previous self. Like, if I can do it, like, I can bless somebody that they can do it, right? Take this vision, take this thing and run with it. And so I started like teaching at events. I started teaching like safety classes and wherever I can kind of pitch in, right, to the industry. And it was just overwhelming, as you know, Sid, right? We've been in this a long time where people are just amazing. I've friends, right? Like, so many friends in so many states by teaching and mentoring and helping and whatever it was. And so it was like going back to, in the very beginning, I was scared to like tell people my secrets, my stories, like how we
mhm,
were winning, because it was that scarcity mindset of like, shoot, man, I got competition in my backyard. They're gonna take food off my plate. But I
yeah,
didn't know that at the time, that no, man, you need to have an abundance mindset. When you bless others, like, it comes back tenfold. And so again, just teaching and mentoring, and then people were like, Pat, can you come bid this large job? I can't do it. It's too big. I'm like, yeah, dude. And I had these people start, you know what I mean? They just start coming out of the woodwork, and you build these relationships. So, to say how I got into it was really through necessity, right? 2008 recession was right there.
mhm.
I was working for a builder at the time, and they were slowly going out of business. Like, the writing was kind of on the writing on the wall, if you will. And so that's when I went full time.
No, that's great. I love a scrappy, like, origin story. where you go, literally, where you're like, hey, I was up against the wall. I didn't really have any other choices. Like, we burned the bridge and we're going to make this work. What were like, AC came out and helped you. So first you got a mentor, you got a coach, you got a guide, somebody that's been down the road. It could show you where the landmines are buried. But beyond that, one of the things you said that's really unique amongst most entrepreneurial types is you said, I just executed. You
Yeah.
didn't overthink it. I know myself included, a lot of guys, like somebody will say, I do it like this. And then I'll spend the next 2 days trying to modify it, make it better. And you go, just go do it.
Mhm.
And don't try to change it. Just do it. And then you can change it later.
Yeah.
So that's a really excellent point. The thing I wanted to ask you about early on, after, like, once you got some help from AC, like, what were the main things that you did that started producing results? And was it surprising to you that it actually worked?
Yeah, so it was more marketing than I was, I was small-minded when I first started, just like a lot of us, right? And I was like, dude, if I put out 1,000 flyers, if I knock on this many doors, I'm gonna be so busy, right? But it
Yeah.
was like, no, you gotta 10x that. Whatever you think it is, you gotta 10x it, right? But what happened was when you start 10xing things, right, you can only do so much. So it was Pat wearing all the hats. And so I read this article, and I'm not like I'm not into Scientology, but there's this article by L. Ron Hubbard, and it said, if you put the people in place, the money will come. And it hit just at the right time. I don't even know how I got this article, right? But it was like, put the people in place and the money will come. And I'm like to your point, it's like, you just got to go execute. You got to do it. You got to learn and you got to fail. And I was never in a management position. I was never like hiring people, right? So if you had a pulse, I'm like, dude, you come work for me, right? And
Yeah.
that works to a point, right? Until friggin' SWAT shows up at your office, right? And they're like, hey, this guy, you probably don't want him on your team. And that was before I was doing background checks, right? Then Ask the Seal with my buddy Ed, right? Marticelli comes into play, and he's like, dude, you need Ask the Seal, start doing background checks, start doing that. So you level up as you grow your business, right? But you don't know what you don't know. And so for me, when I started putting people in place, I hired my office staff, if you will, right? My office lady, and we grew 30% because now I can focus on what my strengths are, right? My strength wasn't being in the office, answering the phone, doing the paperwork. I'm the guy that's like, get out there, make it happen, boots on the ground, like rile the team. So you gotta focus on where your strengths are and hire for your weaknesses. And I learned that kind of early, I guess you'd say, because as I hired, like, I had really good salespeople because I knew sales was something I had to replicate, right, to get more trucks.
Yeah.
And so I dove into the sales, and hence sales boost, but we'll talk about that a little later. But I had to dive into sales. And as I hired really good salespeople, dude, I sucked. I was not a manager. Like, I was like, yeah, dude, you got a pulse. Like, I'm not here to babysit you. Go out and do it. And then they're underbidding, and you learn, right? And I
Yeah.
failed a lot. And unfortunately, like, I failed really good people in the beginning, and now they could stick around, but before they couldn't because the foundation wasn't there. So I had to build and like slowly tweak as I grew the organization.
Yeah. When you first started out, or, well, let's even spread it out. Like you're 8 years in, you're 10
Yeah.
years in. The year is now pushing 2018. Okay, you're 10 years down. What were in that first 10 years? What were some of your first big wins? Like points where you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. Like, I've never experienced this before.
Yeah. So it was our first actually, it was actually 2015. 2015 was a big win for us because we landed a big commercial job, and we were able to get some money, right, to propel us forward. Well, there was a couple big things, but it was a big commercial job, right? Because now we had some money to play with. I was able to buy some more vehicles at that time. I remember growing into the Charlotte market. Actually, all my coaches were like, don't go into the Charlotte market and you're not ready. And we truly weren't. But my brother-in-law was like, hey, man, what does the general manager make, right? I'm like, dude, we got a system. Let's go into Charlotte. Well, it fell on its face 4 years late in. 4 years in, we had to close it down. But when we did that, we brought it back. And that was about at 2016, I want to say. It's hard to remember exact dates, but somewhere in that 16, 17 year, we brought everything back down, the resources, the trucks and everything. And then I hired the people, and dude, we exploded with that. But I had to have the foundation in there for the training, the sales meetings, the production meetings, all that stuff.
Yeah. Did you end up, I know you've had coaches and mentors, but ultimately, did you make and build all your processes and systems, or did you like take them from, the
All
ACs of the
over.
world and adapt them?
100%. They came from all over the place,
Mhm.
little bits and pieces as we grew, because you'd have systems to a point, and then those systems are failing, right? Like for instance, a communication chat for the whole company. I would do big meetings, and they're like, "Yeah, Pat's dad built this company." I'm like, "Dude, my dad wasn't even in the picture since I was born. What are you talking about?" You know what I mean? Because employees talk, and you get this.
Yeah.
We were at like 24 employees at that time. So I had
Yeah.
to do a big company meeting. Like I literally had pictures of a 7x5 wooden trailer that I had somebody paint my logo on the side. Like it
Yeah.
started here. You know what I mean? Like you had to cast the vision a lot of times and kind of reset throughout the process, because the saying's true. Like the people who get you to $800,000 are not the people who are going to get you to 20, to 2 million. It's just
Yeah.
not happening, right? You got to level up your staff. So I would say, with systems and processes, wow, what is it called? EOS, right? EOS
Yeah.
was one that I adopted, right? And then I had tracking systems from another one. And you just build on these things, and you get it to a point, and then you're like, wait a minute, the tracking isn't tracking what I really need to KPI wise, right? So now
Yeah.
we look at many more metrics now than we ever have, right? With Bright Brothers, we have a lot more systems. But before, it was just leveling up the systems and the systems. So to answer your question there, you know what I mean? They come from all over, depending on the industry as well. Like tracking for restaurants is different than tracking for apartment complexes. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So all right, let me shift gears a little bit with Bright Brothers, power washing franchise, when did you start it? It's been 2, 3 years.
3 years, yeah.
3 years. Yeah. So you got a partner that
Yeah.
you guys have been able to work together, but at some point along the way with Precision Pro Wash, you got to this point where you're like, hey, this works. I mean, things are working. It's not perfect, but it's dialed. And we could do it again and again. Let's open other locations. Let's duplicate it, replicate it. Here's the question: from being at a point where you go, hey, I know this works and I know we can duplicate it, to going, let's make it a franchise. There's actually there's a big leap in there. How did you handle, or were you surprised at like how much work and really compliance there is to do to run a real franchise?
Yeah. So there's a lot, a lot of red tape. But when we already had a lot of locations with the previous company, right? So we knew how to clean in different states. We knew kind of like the marketing and like tweaking little things for across the country, pricing, that kind of stuff. So I already knew a lot of that, doing trainings and having multi locations. So when we went into Bright Brothers and, my business partner, we were looking at it, we were like, we already have a system. He's already done franchising. So it's a no-brainer, right? He's already done franchising, taking a couple companies to 90 plus locations. So for me, it was a no-brainer, because it was like I didn't have to reinvent the wheel, right? They've already done it. They have the School of Entrepreneurship, which is a 2.5-year college course for entrepreneurs. Like I just had to bolt on some of my stuff to his already stuff for our industry, period. Right. So that made it a lot easier. So just a little background. My business partner has 35 businesses, one of which is doing over $600 million. And then they have a hub that was what I was building on a very small level with just, 4 employees, some VAs, right? But they have Contractor Nation, and Contractor Nation is a giant hub for over 3,000 plus contractors, right? So they already had the systems. So it was a no-brainer for me to say, okay, yeah, we're just bolting this on. Let's go, right? So when we decided to do that, we were actually going to franchise the previous company, but there was other precision power washes and precision, whatever all over the state. So it just didn't make sense. Plus, it didn't say holiday lights, and that was a big staple actually within the last. Well, now been doing it 3 years, but it was 4 years prior to that we were doing holiday lights, and that company just did not say that name, right? It didn't say anything about lighting.
Yeah.
So we were like, let's go with Bright Brothers. So you guys can see the logo, right?
Yeah.
And it's like facial recognition. So we went to the drawing board and we're like, we're going to start. Now, I will tell you, it was a lot harder to start from scratch than to have an existing brand. Because in the beginning, you have like an item 19, you have numbers that you want to post, right? So people are like, oh, okay, this is a business, a real business, right? We didn't have any of that. So when we go and you do the FDD, a lot of work going back and forth, writing manuals, like you name it, there was a lot in there. So the first whole year was just development, right? Franchise development was the whole first year. And then the second year we launched our first location, and then we did 9 locations in the first year. And we have a couple actually still in the process right now of launching into this year, which obviously they're going to do in a couple months. But yeah, super good. I mean, we did very well our first year without showing like numbers, because you can't legally, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you got to comply all the way across. What are your areas of strength? Because you were talking about you had to write the manuals and write the stuff. And to me, that's like, I'd rather jump off a cliff than write a book of SOPs. Everybody's got their strength. What are yours?
Yeah, so mine is training, right? So that's where I came into this, and I was like, look, I don't want to operate a location. I'm the chief training officer, right? So like I'm the visionary, if you will. So high level stuff as well as training, right? So my job is to go in and set up a location for a franchisee, get them tracking, get them on, the basics basically right out the gate. And then we have stages. So I created the training program where we go out there, set them up, teach them a sales system. And we do weekly calls. So we have 3 calls a week that we do with them for 1 hour that are in depth, like role playing, you name it. We go into that stuff. So I'm really just focused on training and growing the franchisees and be there whenever, right? Like I'm just a call away. So if they have a cleaning question, that's what I'm there for. I'll fly out to their location. If they get a big job, that's my main focus. And then around us, we have a COO, Chief Operations Officer, that does the day-to-day stuff, right? Amazing team that we have. And then we have Andrea, which is in our marketing. We do our own marketing hub called the Treehouse Marketing. So we do all the marketing for all our franchisees. We have a national call center that we have a team for that. And so anyway, it was training everybody in the beginning, how to answer the phone, like how fast do we have to answer the phone? What is this customer journey, right? Like inputting all this stuff, which a lot of it was there. Don't get me wrong. It was already there. It was just inputting my flair, because that's what made this thing go, right? So putting my little spin on some of those things. But that's what I like doing, man. Motivation and training and coaching.
With Sales Boost, if we're flashing back a little bit, you started Sales Boost, and clearly, I mean, this is sales training for home service businesses. Did you like the training that you had done there? Did you just adapt that into your sales training for Bright Bros?
A lot of it, yeah. They already had what they call Perfectus, which is the sales system that they use. So mine was very similar. Theirs was a little bit different. And so we just adopted that and train on it. It's a little bit more in depth we have 8 steps, but it's really like, it's next level stuff that we adapted in there.
Yeah. So a lot of guys earlier in their journey, they know sales is important. They feel like they're good at it because they're personable. They care a ton. They want to get the job. It's one-to-one impact. But maybe they don't have a sales process. You had an 8-point framework for sales. Could you just walk through that quickly? Don't teach a sales class, but
So talking about what we had was like, how do we show up, right? So like number 1 is you want to make sure that you're in communication at all times, right? So we call before the quote. So we're like, hey, we're on our way. By the way, we're stopped by Starbucks. You need anything, right? So step number 1 is just showing up, but you want to find things out too, like about the homeowner, like look at the area. So we talk about that as far as like where you park the car, right? Like everybody has a sales process, whether you have it on writing or if it's in your head, you do something, right? So I always say, start with writing it down. What do you do now, right? So step number 1 is call before you show up. Step number 2 is we do a walk around with the customer. So we want to do an interview with the customer, and we want to learn what what are their issues, what's going on, and not necessarily even talk about cleaning, right? Like I want to build some rapport.
Yeah.
Step number 3 is going to be a free inspection. So free inspection that we do around the home. So we look for things like nail pops on the roof, drainage, little things, nothing too crazy. But do a walk around. And number 4 is we go out to the car, and then that's where we do our measurements. So obviously we measure the home, we get all the measurements, we go out to the car, and then that's where we type up our proposal. So we always do options for the customer, because I'm really firm believer in, customers like options. They don't like one price.
Yeah.
We do that. And then step number 5, you put me on the spot here with my numbers here. But after we do that, right, then we go inside, and then we do our presentation, if you will. We go over about the company, like, what's different about us, why we, think we're a preferred vendor for that homeowner. So we go through the story of Bright Brothers, basically. And then we do some like closes, you know what I mean? Like nothing crazy. We're not a big closing company. I always say we're in, soft washing. We do soft sales. I believe people want to have options and choose. And so when we go in there, but I am going to ask for the business, because I noticed like when I teach, like, back in the day with Sales Boost, people are like, it's only 4,000, and they're scared to say a big number. And so anyway, we break it down. We make it easy for people to go in there and quote a lot of the things so that you can bring value to the homeowner. So we'll do that. And then the next one is basically follow up, right? Like you ask for the business and then you follow up enthusiastically. So that's a big thing where, amateurs focus on the front end, professionals focus on the back end, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you just want to get the business, you're gung ho. That's good and all, but you want to focus on the back end too. Like, what are you doing for the client? Like, you know what I mean? How are you following up? And so that was the biggest thing, was just following up.
Yeah. So hold on, I'm writing a note with Bright Brothers. Any market that you're going into, obviously there's going to be some type of competition. Maybe there's an established company. Maybe, there are a lot of companies that pop up and their only competitive advantage is pricing.
Yeah.
What's in the training? What sets Bright Brothers apart?
Yeah. So we used to get people that said they'd do it for half of whatever I did it for, literally 50% of whatever we quoted.
Yeah.
And so anyway, we just go in with a masterful presentation, to be honest. Like with Bright Brothers, we're a large enough company that, we're going to make sure that the cleaning is right. Like a manager is going to come by, check on the cleaning to make sure that they're happy. Right. So there's a lot of things that we do, I guess I would say a little bit different, but for the customer to make sure that they're happy. Like we're going to take care of anything if we mess something up. Right.
Yeah.
But we go and we're triple certified. So we train on all this stuff, right? That these guys, that it's not just we hire somebody and they go wash a house. So we talk about our training, we talk about our people, our core values, our response rate, right? So we talk about a lot of that in there, and it's the customer journey. And like we just did one for a cedar siding house, and they're like, we've had 3 different quotes. One was way higher than yours because it was going to take them 4 days to do it when we can do it in a day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So price is relative. If it's down to price, we love it when it's down to price. We teach on that. You know what I mean? Because in reality, we all just want the piece of the pie. So if there's a bunch of companies out there, just like there's like 100 McDonald's or, Dollar Generals on the corner, you're just trying to get that little piece of the pie. We're not coming in there dominating the whole market, right? We just want a little piece of the pie. So when we come in, it's just honesty, being upfront with the customer and saying, hey, our process is a little bit different than traditional pressure washing. So if the kid's coming down the road and he wants to pressure wash the house and it's $150 or whatever it is, do you want your house to be a test house, or do you want somebody that has experience, right?
Yeah.
That's going to stand behind their work. So we just break it down, in our presentation to set up the standard for clean. When we show up, it's background checks. It's, these guys are trained. There's a lot of things that we put in there that, helps homeowners make an educated decision at the end of the day.
Yeah. When you first started talking about it, it's pretty clear that one of your competitive advantages is just communication, because you said, we set up a quote, we call them when we're on the way, like we're on the way. And then that added touch, we're like, I'm past my Starbucks. What do you want? I mean, that's That was surprising to me. It's so simple, but it's a little thing that sets you apart. But the communication, walking around the house, looking at things, and then showing and telling them the story. Like most companies don't do that. They just go like they'll walk around the house and write on the $1,400 in the back of a business card and go, here you go. So
Yeah.
that's a big differentiator on its own,
Yeah.
just in the customer journey.
Yeah.
What's your opinion, pros and cons on in-person bids versus over the phone?
I never will do over the phone in a million years. And the reason being is because the numbers don't lie, right? If you do
Mhm.
a bid over the phone, now it's just price. Like
Yeah.
I know there's some areas, and granted, like with holiday lights and stuff like that. And if you're there is a place for it. I'm not a fan of it, whether I'm one truck or 5 trucks or 10 trucks, right? But the fact of the matter is sometimes you can't get to quotes, right? Um, and so if you're in an area like Seattle, Washington, or like a really big place and you're getting a lot of influx quotes, I'm going to do as many as I can in person and then do some over the phone. But again,
Mhm.
I'm not a fan of over the phone because there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it over the phone as well. But that's a whole nother story. But in-person quotes are better, right? That people will do business with whom they like and trust, period.
Yeah.
So if you show up and you do the work and you earn the business, they're going to be a customer for life when they just call. And guess what? They're like, yeah, that was great, but I'm going to go with somebody else next time, right? There's no loyalty there. So we've seen that over the years.
Yeah. How do you position or balance in-person quotes versus like the speed velocity? Like what's your standard for getting a quote done in person? Like how soon?
Yeah, so we try not to book out more than a week. We've had it though where we have been over a week, but you will start losing jobs because it's quick, right? Especially with holiday lights, it's crazy, man. They're like, we want it, we want it. So
Yeah.
then we teach sales, right? And that's where you got to replicate you to dominate and get into that market where you're still doing person sales, but you need to replicate yourself. And so, anyway, we have a track with Bright Brothers. We have a little track for them to go into that sales role, and they'll
Yeah.
know pretty quickly. But we create backlog. We talk about backlog and how much backlog you need, right, to sustain. Because obviously, backlog is good because you know what's coming 2-3 weeks down the road,
Yeah.
and that helps out too. But again, you just pitch it. Hey, we're in high demand. You know what I mean? Like that. That's what it is. People are calling right now, but we're about a week out or whatever. But if you start to see people drop off, you gotta do something there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. We always did in-person bids, but then we started getting enough influx where it's like there's only so many you could do. And I trained a guy. And so, two of us could do X. Then we shifted to doing over the phone. Now we just do window cleaning. So there's not as much nuances as with, power washing a house and soft washing and seeing it. It's
Yeah,
just most of the times a window's a window. There's only so much stuff that can be on it.
that's right.
And we started doing over the phone bids. And what we found in that was like our close rate was slightly higher in person, not
Yeah,
significant. I thought it would be a big difference. Um, but when somebody's calling us, generally they're like, just scratch my itch today.
yeah,
Like if we could give it to them right now and then book it, then we build rapport on site. But it's like, I'm still a big fan of in person because it's a richer experience and you have every opportunity to upsell, to sell at a higher price, to establish rapport. I think it's better. Um, I just wonder, like, what your guys' process is and how scalable is it? It ends up being
yeah. And
how
that's
many
where
people you can
salespeople
train.
come in. Yeah, and that's where salespeople come in. But again, like when you go over the phone, now you can definitely build a model, right, to where you can do multiple touches throughout the community and stuff like that. Because
Yeah,
over the phone too, you lose a lot of opportunities if you don't do it right. You just go do that one job, and guess what? You were there for a couple hours, but you leave the yard sign. You didn't talk to the neighbors. You didn't do all these things. You have
yeah,
to build all that into a process, and that's what we've done. Is like replication, right? That is key. But again, ultimately, it's the journey, right? Like I want them to meet me. I want to see the property. I need to take pictures. But to your point, yeah, like if the close ratio isn't that much off, why not do in person and then follow up, right? With the follow up is key on that.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So, out of curiosity, I'm going to rewind all the way back to the beginning. When you first started Precision Pro Wash and you were doing stuff. Now you're franchising, You guys have multiple locations in the franchise and a lot more in the pipeline, and you've got big goals and dreams. Early on, like the first 2 years, you're 22 years old. You got a young wife. Maybe you just started a family. You probably had one child, and you're
Yep.
like, everything's a scramble. You're wearing 17 hats. What was your biggest goal when you started? And then fast forward to today, where you guys stand and what's your goal for the next few years?
Yeah. So my first goal, actually, it's crazy because we still talk about it, was I was working for the builder, right? And I was making $500 a week. My goal was $600 a week. It's crazy. Everything's relative, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that was my first ever goal. Was like, I just need to make my $600 a week at that time. And then it grew, right? Then the next goal, a couple years down the road with my first kid on the way, and like he's growing, it's like crazy. And I'm getting like, I'll never forget the pain and the struggle too, because like you're working nights, days, weekends, and I you know what I mean? Like you sacrifice some of that time with your family. Man, I remember, dude, I bought a trailer and I didn't buy my wife a vacuum. Oh my word. I still like remember that to this day. I'm like, I can't believe, like, I didn't even put two and two together because I'm like in growth mode. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so it's pretty bad, but to your point, you know what I mean? Like when you're growing like that, there's a lot of things that you have to, what bill to pay, right? Sometimes like, what bill do I pay this time? And, I think when you first start, it's very hard because there's not that influx, right? And sometimes it's like job to job, and the next week, shoot, you get 1 inch of snow, and then the state shuts down, and then you're like, now what do I do, right?
Yeah.
So there's things that aren't there, but I just remember a lot of pain in the very beginning, a lot of hard work, like I said, working even nights and days because I got a strip mall that I have to do at night, but I'm working residential during the day. And then scaling as far as like building the next trailer, buying the next Udor pump, right? To get better because you go to the huge convention and you're like, dude, I need that to be more, faster, efficient, and, these things. And so anyway, as I was doing that, it was a lot of trial and error in the beginning too, of like what works right. Like, do I downstream or how do I clean asphalt? And I was learning all of that as well as learning the business and how to like manage not a set salary, right? Like it comes in, sometimes it's more, sometimes less. And then I remember drawing this. So like I have this funny joke that I came out of the closet because my office was in my closet. Yeah. And I was like, but I had my maps like in my bedroom and I would circle every time I did $400 like that day, I would circle in and color in this, jar. And as I get to my goal was like $10,000 or $15,000 in 1 month. Yeah. And I remember filling these things in. We're like, dude, we're getting closer. And I'm like trying to up my prices to get the houses and, do 4 in a day or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But, I think that was huge because as I was growing too, like I didn't think of it as a business when I was working out of my house. Right. And I remember like being at this next step was at the apartment complex. And I parked my cars in front of the garages. And I'm like, dude, you got to make it before you got to fake it before you make it. Right. I took a picture of all the trucks in front of the garages at the apartment complex. I'm like, this guy's got an office. But, it wasn't. It was just me. Right. My wife was like crushing it on the office side. We had our kids at that point. Like it was like a daycare right at our 3 office little thing that we were renting. And she's taking the kids to the job sites, like helping me, right? Like there was so much in the beginning. And like, thank God for my wife because she was the one, like, honestly, she was the one like driving the thing. Cause if I were to do it again, like all by myself, it's like impossible. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
for sure.
It was
sure. How did you meet your franchise partner?
Actually, he reached out to me. So crazy story. I was training and everything, right? And I was pitching Raindrop Pro Gutter Guard to the industry. And so his president of Raindrop, she reached out to me. And I was like, hey, can you jump on one of our leadership calls and meet the team and like help us sell Raindrop, right? Because it's a whole different sale. So there's different sales pitches for different products that we have. Yeah. And so anyway, I was like, yeah, jump on the call. So she jumped on the call. And then she started researching me and she saw that I was speaking and stuff like that at these different conferences. And so anyway, she reached out to Larry, my business partner, was like, Larry, you have to meet Pat Clark. He's like the Larry Janeski of the power washing industry, right? Like he's teaching, he's like got this thing. And so he called me. I was like, and at this time, I'll be honest, I had like 4 or 5 other people. One guy flew out, he wanted to buy the business. He took us to lunch and he offered me, some money. And I've had a guy from Canada wanted to buy it, and they wanted to buy at this time. And I was like, I kind of like it. Like, I don't need to sell the business, right? Like, I like
Yeah.
what I'm doing. I'm coaching and things are going really well. And so, anyway, so we were just kind of like testing the waters and, with Conquer and all these things, right? So I'm coaching and they're like, build the business to sell it. And I'm like, let's go through the process and just see where we're at. Let's see what it values at, right?
Yeah.
So going through those different things was really cool because I learned a lot doing that as well. And so anyway, he reached out to me. I'm like, who's Larry Janeski? So boom, I look up Larry Janeski, and dude, he's like got multiple companies. He's like doing really well. I'm like, whoa, this is like really cool. So I ended up talking to my wife. We prayed about it and everything. And I called Larry back and I was like, Larry, how's it going? I was like, thanks for reaching out. And he's like, dude, you need to come up here. I really think we need to work together. You need to see what we got going on and, come up for a couple of days. And so talk to my wife, and she's usually like, the thinker. I'm the doer, right? She's more calculated. She's like, well, all right, walk me through this. And so I'm like, all right, so Larry's got the company, he wants to talk to us. Maybe we're going to partner. I said, we got to definitely go up and see what's going on. So I got to convince her to go all the way 14 hours away to Connecticut, right? Yeah. Do this. And so anyway, we did. And we went up there for 2 days, and it was life changing because what Larry has built, if you look at Contractor Nation, it's amazing. Like when you walk in, he has people that have been there for 30, 40 plus years.
Really?
Yeah, the tenure there is amazing, and they're all like, if you get in with Larry, you're good. Like he's doing things way different. The culture there, when you walk into their office, it's like Google 2.0. The floors are colors. They have different conference rooms that are laid out different. They have one room they call Boomtown, and it's got a giant I-beam with the people that built it because America was built with your hands.
Yeah,
and he has that. He has like 1900s desks. Then you go to the cafeteria, it's a 1930s themed cafe, right? But it's all to inspire creativity, right? And what he's doing is just like phenomenal. It's like next level stuff. And so, reaching out to him, super smart guy, like actually very intimidating. When you talk to him, he thinks before he speaks. And it's like, I'm not like that, right? Like I'm just like talk, go, whatever it is, it is. And so, but it was really cool to be able to sit in that room and have him game plan what we're going to do and what he's done. And so my wife actually said yes before I did. She's like, this is what we're going to do. And she's like, let's do it. And I'm like, all right, I guess we're in, right? And so, so it was really, really cool. It was nerve wracking. Don't get me wrong. Never had a business partner before. And you got to think of it as a marriage, right? Yeah. And so it was scary at that point, but he already had the fundamentals there. We, obviously had the COO. We just put the team together, and he is very fast. Like when you look at Contractor Nation, we make things happen quick. Our first location, the hub, if you will, we had it up and running within like 40, I think it was 44 days. Larry was like, let's do it in 44 days. Like we were pretty close, but I mean, literally nothing. Built out the offices, built out all the stuff. And we were up and running leads from zero to nothing, to leads, running leads. So that was pretty cool.
Wow, that's fascinating. So I'm not that familiar with Contractor Nation. I've only heard of it. So now I have to go and dig it up and see what's going on there. What's the next thing I want to ask is, like, now you're in growth mode again, in a different type of growth. So what are some of the challenges that you face now? And most importantly is like how do you think about problem solving?
Yeah. So some of the problems that we're having, I wouldn't say problems, right? Like growing a franchise is a little bit different because, who is going to buy a franchise, right? So you're thinking of different folks. Who's your customer avatar, right? Goes back to your residential thing. So it's thinking on a different level where these folks come from. And so it's a whole different world in franchising. It really is, because they have organizations that people, for instance, like, they search on a website for a franchise, right? And there's a lot of different websites. So you have to advertise in those, right? So there's different marketing avenues for people that are like, hey, I'm interested in buying a franchise. Okay, what does that look like? And so we have a whole sales team that are just going out there to talk to potential franchisees. And then they're like matchmakers, and they will actually give a couple different brands depending on that person's, vision, if you will, what's going to serve them at a high level. And so we need to be in front of those. So it's different trade shows, right? But in the beginning, the challenge was we didn't have numbers. So how do you pitch a franchise when you're like, hey, okay, yeah, this is good at model, but we don't have any numbers?
Yeah.
So we were super blessed, to be honest, because I luckily I had a reputation in the industry. So a lot of the people that we first started with knew me from, on the forums and whatever. And they were researching. They're like, oh, Pat Clark. Oh, okay. So he did, but we couldn't show numbers. We couldn't tell them, but they knew that I was in the industry for a long time, and then partnered with Contractor Nation, which was in the industry for contractors for 30 plus years. So that helped out a lot to overcome some of those numbers things in the beginning.
Yeah.
But we have the system, I think, as far as going nationwide. Obviously Texas is a whole different, like you talk about Austin, right? We have DFW, we have Austin, and we have Houston now, right? And so it's a different animal out there. The mold and mildew is a little bit different, right? So we just learned that we have to adapt our solutions and stuff, and our mix ratio charts are a little bit different out there than it would be in Florida, right?
Do you have a company science mixologist that like tests all the different ratios of the syrup and the bleach and everything that you use?
Yeah, pretty much me, right?
Okay.
Yeah. But no, I mean, we have the soaps and the surfactants and stuff like that to go to those different areas. But the cool thing is, like, there's little bits of differentiators throughout the country, but not much, right? And the cool thing is that's where I've done training really all over the place. So I kind of know what we're going to run into on that front. So that helps out and gives franchisees the confidence to go in different areas. But we are focusing really in the Southeast, out towards Texas and stuff like that. So,
yeah. So you love to train and teach and mentor, and then your partnership with Contractor Nation with Larry, like clearly he has a vision that's really big, and it lifted you up. And I assume he's a mentor of yours now as well.
100%.
What are what are some of the leadership principles that you rely on that you teach to your people?
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of the leadership is showing up, right? I always say show up, even when it's hard, because sometimes with leadership, it's always training. So we talk about always training. And when you talk about the principles, right, it's like doing things correctly when nobody's watching. And so Contractor School of Entrepreneurship actually has a program. It's called Pro-Am for managers. It's a whole leadership track to train them on holding people accountable the right way. Not like, you've seen the mean boss, or you've seen people in leadership. They're like, oh, no, it's okay. Or, there's a lot of things that go into leadership that I had to learn the hard way by failing and then saying, oh, I messed up, I got to recorrect. So we have a whole manager track for leadership. But, the big thing with leadership is like owning your own crap, right? Like the buck stops with you a lot of times. So don't blame it on somebody else. And so when you start a franchise, right, like you are the trainer, you know what I mean? You're the safety officer, you're the trainer, you're the leader. It stops with you. And so, when they take this system on, they have the training, they have the structure, which is really nice. But they still have to do training day in and day out. So we have morning huddles every morning with all the teams. I'll jump on their morning huddles and stuff like that. And then I have my calls as well with their teams. But the main thing is like, with leadership is just like showing up, loving on your team, having good core values, right? That you guys all huddle around. And we have a thing called rallying the team. So we do that every week, and we have a whole board that we rally the team. So the leader gets the whole team together. Some of our leaders will do like exercises each day, like with the team. They'll do like, jumping jacks or whatever it is. But they have fun, and it's cool to be able to see each and every one of our leaders are different in their own way, right? They have strengths and stuff, and it's cool because they have different ideas that they put into their leadership that goes outside of work, right? They're building leaders inside their organization right out the gate. And that's the other cool thing with franchising, because, you're getting people that have had businesses, multiple businesses, right? This is something that, might be for their kids and they're bringing stuff into it as well. And it just compounds on itself, which is really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, excuse me. I recall, it wasn't Sales Boost. It was probably a breakout session at the huge convention some years ago when you spoke, and like you were talking about leadership and you talk about empowering your people. But one of the things that it is one of those things that's so simple that you don't think about it, but it's inescapable when you said it out loud. You talked about Babe Ruth. You're like, it's hard to beat a guy that won't quit.
Yeah.
Like just understanding in leadership, empowering your people, the power of persistence, and then the consistency in education and mentorship.
Yes.
And you guys built all that. You're building that. Well, it sounds like they already had it built at Contractor Nation, but you've adapted that and built it into Bright Brothers.
Yeah, because I mean, we've heard it before, right? Success leaves clues. And so when you run through all these things, right? Like I remember when Larry first picked me up and he was like, man, so you did a lot of on-sites, right? And I said, yeah, because I used to with Sales Boost, right? We did Sales Boost on site where you go out to a business and you do a discovery and you figure out where the holes are and you figure out and you tweak and then you grow. And so there's a lot of things that come with that changes you, because the reality is your business isn't going to change until you change as the leader, right? Because you at the leader, you're the bottleneck. Your business is only going to grow there. And so, when I saw what Larry was doing, like I saw an opportunity for me to grow, right? My floor just went up higher for me to grow as well through his leadership, right? Yeah. And so it was cool though. So much things were similar, right? Like we had the whole training, like I was using an LMS system, right? To do all my training videos. And if you video at one time, guess what? You only got to say it one time, hopefully, right? But, those were the things that we were building on this thing. And he already had it built. He sat in a room for like a year. I think it was even more than a year, and built a book and the video training called the Book of Solutions. And he does like crawl space encapsulation system. He does like a lot of different things. So it's a lot of processes and the science and technology. So we just bolted our stuff right to his.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you mentioned early on, and you just alluded to it a second ago, that it was like when you started super scrappy, you had, like maybe not a highly advantaged background or childhood. You're just trying to figure it out. And you said you had your mindset shifted. What are one or two of the really eye-opening or impactful mindset shifts that you've had throughout your growth here? And that's where we'll wrap up and land for today.
Yeah. So there was a lot. I'm probably not going to be able to touch on all of them, but there was a lot of mind shifts as far as like, man, I think the biggest one for me was a mind shift was like the hiring, right? Like I was scared to hire, and the mind shift was, if you hire somebody that's better than you, they can take this and go do it themselves. But the reality is, like, would you rather train them and them stay trained, or would you train them and have them leave, right? Like that was scary to me. So a mindset was like, no, train like you've never trained before. Train them and love up on them so they stay. That was a big thing, because I was always like scarcity mindset in the very beginning. So like training, number one, because I had a sales guy that I was really afraid. He had way more money than I did in the very beginning. He was older and he did sales, and I was writing $2,200, $3,000 checks a week to this guy. He was crushing it in sales. And then he was like, hey, how much does a skid cost? And I was like, oh no. And then he's like, how much does a truck cost? I'm like, Jody, please don't go start another business. You know what I mean? Like, you get scared of that. And I can't tell you how many businesses I started, like reality, right? Of managers coming in, they think they can do it better. But the fact of the matter is the good ones do stay. And when you level up your team, that stays. So that was a mind shift for me. The other one was I was afraid of money. I didn't realize this in the very beginning, but it hindered me in the beginning because I was afraid to make money because I thought people would think of me differently. Yeah. And I really believe that money just amplifies what's in your heart. And so we were able to do a lot of cool things once we started making money in the business, like outreach things for kids. I was able to buy employees vehicles. Like it was really cool to be able to do stuff like that. But in the beginning was like, I was afraid to talk about it because, growing up, with my mom, she was mentally ill. We lived in a trailer park. Like, money was not a thing, but I was always like, okay, how do I go paint a deck? How do I mow a lawn to make a couple extra bucks? But when you start making some serious money, it gets scary, right? But
Yeah.
it's not as bad, right? When you start making money, you can do a lot of good with it. Now, don't get me wrong, you want to be a good steward of your money, because as you start making money, and like this goes back to Profit First, the book.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When you have that big bank account and you see $200,000, $300,000 sitting in the bank account, right? To some people, that's not a lot of money, but to some people, it is a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
And so when you have that in there, you kind of like, okay, let's go do something else, or let's buy this or that. And you're like, well, shoot, you got to pay taxes on that money. And I remember when you start making money, guess what?
Tax
Uncle
bill.
Sam comes knocking, man.
Oh, they
And
knock loud too.
they do. And it's really cool, though, to be able to write those really big checks paying taxes, because you're making money.
Yeah.
And so it sucked. Don't get me wrong. Like, as we started making more money, you're like, more money. Like I always say, P. Diddy was right. More money, more problems, right?
Yeah.
But if you have systems and processes, right, it works out, and you get the good team behind you where, you pay things on time, and you start leveraging your money, right, in the right way. So money was a big thing for me, right? Now it's like, it's really cool because we can talk about investment portfolios, and like, you're doing fun things with money, and you watch it grow 30% in 1 year, and you're like, let's go, right?
Yeah.
So that stuff comes, right? But you have to grow the business to be able to do fun things with that, because I wouldn't be able to do that if it was just a couple people on my team. So that was another mind shift, was that. And then the business partner thing, right? Like, I was always a guy that was like, and not necessarily like do it myself kind of person, but I'm a firm believer in bringing people in these days. So like, why would you try to reinvent the wheel, right? Do it the hard way, learn all the hard lessons, but because I had my logo or my thing, or it was my thing. No, man, you start bringing people in, and it blesses a lot of your friends, family, whatever it is. And that was cool to see too. So like, I'm a firm believer in like cut the learning curve, man. Like, bring a business partner on, right? A good one. Obviously, you got to vet them, those kinds of things. But yeah, like, if you see something, work with somebody to do it quicker or faster, and it just gets you. I had this saying, you might have heard me say it. It's like, this is my image in my brain, but you have this ladder that you're going up, right? Everybody talks about the ladder. You go up, you work your way up the ladder, but you get above the clouds, and then there's 2 or 3 ladders. You have the choice to pick, right? Which ladder you go up, who you want to associate with, who you're going to partner with, whatever it may be. And so, I don't know. That was kind of my like little analogy, is like, put the people in place. You're going to get really cool relationships, and put yourself in the room with like-minded contractors, like-minded people like you that are more successful than you, that can bring you up, and bring people with you, man. Bring them, you know what I mean? And it's a fun ride. Enjoy it.
Heck yeah. Well, Pat, I probably have a half dozen more questions, but we are out of time. So first of all, thanks for taking time to jump on and just to share your story and some of the insights and the learning that you had along the way. This is very valuable for everybody that's listening. And then also, this has just been a lot of fun. You're fun to hang around with. And I'm sorry we hadn't done this earlier. Yeah, I look forward to seeing you around the industry this year. Do you still speak at events and do stuff?
So I don't. I'm kind of got my head down, like focused on growing this thing. Our goal is actually to go over 90 locations, and only 5% of franchises go over 100 locations. So I'm going to be dialed in this year. Like, the goal is 25, guys. Like, I call my shot, 25 locations this year. So yeah, I'm going to be out traveling and stuff like that. But my goal is to get together. Like, if I go to different areas and stuff, I love trying to do like little lunches where we can get together and see people. But yeah, hopefully I'll be at some different things this year. But I know I got a show coming up in a week and a half, which is for a national chain. So we're going to be doing a lot of national shows and stuff. So I'm going to be real busy, unfortunately.
All right. Well, that's cool. Well, Godspeed and best of luck, or however you want to say it, with the growth of your new venture. And I really appreciate your time. And then you contributed so solidly to the industry over the past decade and a half. So thanks for that.
Yes, sir. No, thank you. It's been an honor. Thanks for having me on the show, man. This is great. So yeah, I hope that helps somebody. You know what I mean? Somebody out
Yeah.
there, takes that and runs with it. But yeah, a pleasure.
And if somebody wants to look into Bright Brothers, what's the web address? We'll put it in the show notes. We'll have it on here.
Yeah, just go to brightbrothers.com, go down to the franchise tab, and then check us out. We have little open houses, if you will, every Tuesday. So every Tuesday at 4 p.m. If you guys are interested, just go to that page, brightbrothers.com, check out our franchisee page, and then, see what we got going on. Love to have you.
Very cool. All right. Thanks again, Pat.
Yes, sir. Thank you.